Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are back on F1 21 as always, and in today's video, we are going to be doing something a little bit back to the roots, something I haven't done for a while, and that is to see how fast we can go around a certain track. And the track we've chosen is Silverstone. See Thomas Ronha with a 25.7, absolutely insane. But we're doing a little bit more than that. We're actually going to try and see how close we can get to the F1 Esports pole position lap round here by Fredrik Rasmussen of a 125.9. And speaking to a few F1 Esports drivers, they have said that the Esports build and the full qualifying, specifically Q3, is actually faster than time trial and online on the normal game, because they can run a little bit less fuel. There are a few little bit of differences with the handling as well. And although the time trial is faster, the world record is faster than the Esports pole lap, it's because time trial you just have so many opportunities. As you can see, we're changing the brake bias here because we are going out with the stock setup just to get used to the track just a little bit. But yeah, a few of the eSport drivers have said that time trial is still faster, or the lap time is faster in time trial, not because it is actually faster, but because you just have so many attempts to do it and you have more opportunities to put down the perfect lap. But of course, in F1 Esports, in that final Q3 lap, you really only have one opportunity to pit it all together. But if you could do a perfect lap, they feel that you could go even faster than the time trial world record. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So we decided to go on the time trial here because I didn't really have anyone to spend hours playing online with, and Grand Prix mode doesn't feel quite as good for me. So although it might be a bit slower in the time trial, let's just see how close we can get. And see, right now we're just using the stock setup, so kind of like what we did in my previous world record attempts, just trying to set a good time with the stock setup first gives you a little bit of confidence. But as always, shock, we get an invalidation, which I never mean to do, but always seems to be the case. And please let me know if you want me to do more of these videos. Give the video a like if you want me to do more attempts of how close I can get to the F1 Esports pole position laps. But of course, Silverstone is one of my favourite tracks to drive, so I thought this would be a good one. And you can also see here, we're running quite high gears, and I had a good look at Rasmussen's pole lap, and I'm trying to use the same gears as he did, because I did a video recently talking about the high gears being OP on this game, and a lot of people agreed with that as well, where it doesn't offer any more rotation or anything at all, but it doesn't give you any extra understeer. It just seems to give you a lot more stability when you're going on the full power, because if you're bouncing it off the revs in a lower gear, then the car can sometimes be a bit unpredictable when it will snap out on you. So this is kind of going against my natural driving style, but as always, no matter how long you've played for or how good you are, I've been racing in leagues for the last 12 years, since 2010, so a very long time. You can always learn something, and I always want to improve, and qualifying has always been a little bit of my Achilles heel in terms of the qualifying pace, so I'm just trying to get myself better as well at the same time as we do a 28.0. But we move on to the next lap. You can see we're almost 1.5 attempts up, and coming through here we're just going to invalidate, which is a bit annoying. But then coming on to this next lap, this was actually my fastest lap I did with the stock setup, and this is something I always like to do just to get myself into a bit of a rhythm. And usually if you can set a good lap with the stock setup, you should be going well over a second quicker when you put on a custom setup. So it just gives you a little bit of confidence, really, and that's kind of what it does for me. And hopefully these videos will just give you a bit of a genuine perspective on what the process is when you're trying to set the fastest lap possible, because I agree as well with many people that sometimes you look at these times on the leaderboard with a 25.7, I think he's almost about a tenth cleared of anyone else. You ask yourself, how is that possible? And you know, sometimes the route to progress is the small steps getting there, and you have to realise how much time these drivers put in to the game itself. You know, for F1 Esports, they're having 2 or 3 months practicing just for this one track. The dedication and the small differences in your driving can make a really big difference. So we spent about 90 minutes doing this here today, but hopefully it gives people a bit of inspiration on how much progress you can actually make in a relatively short time period, but also accepting that you're not going to be where you want to be within 90 minutes as well. As we cross the line, it's a 27.7, which puts me 4,000th in the world, because PC is very competitive on the time trial, and yeah, I was fairly happy with that. So now we'll go download Ron Haar's setup and let's see what we can do. So he's running 14-12 wings, 55-51, right, left, 3-2, 3-1, 5-3, brakes 150, and middle fronts and maximum rear pressures. One thing to note with the tyre pressures, online you do have to lower it much more. In time trial, you actually don't get affected by the tyre temperature. So this is my first lap with this setup, and you can immediately see straight away with the much lower wings, we are gaining quite a bit of time. So we're going to keep with the high gears through here, something that I'm still kind of getting used to. And you can see we're missing the apex there, but on the exit, because of these wings, we are much faster in a straight line. And going through this first sector, we're going to be about 3 tenths up, so 27.4, which is not really too bad in the first sector. You can see a little bit of a squiggle with the wheel, so it's gone from a setup that was quite stable, quite understeery, to now a setup that's definitely a lot more twitchy. And something I mentioned in my coaching sessions with people is that you want to try and perfect your own inputs as much as possible. So really the goal is to try and be as smooth as you can, and realize at times that less is more. And what I mean by that is you want to try and keep the wheel as straight as possible. So sometimes it's about turning in early and less. Really focus on the minimum speed as much as possible. And it's not about braking later, but as you can see coming through here, it's about coming off the brakes quicker and smoothly. So your steering wheel should be very much connected to your pedal. So the more you go on the power, the more you're unwinding your steering wheel, going back to the center. On the brakes, the more the wheel is straight, the more you can go on the brake pressure, but the more you turn in, the more you come off the brakes. So kind of working in opposites to each other. But if you can start to have that mindset when you're going on the inputs, the throttle and the brakes, you can become much more efficient on it. And sometimes it's not about braking later, but it's about coming off the brakes quicker. So you can see going through here, we're using the brakes to control it. You don't want to be on and off all the time. You want to do everything in one nice fluid motion. But of course, when you're trying to drive at an esports pace in qualifying, you kind of have to go against your natural instincts and go on the power when you think it's not possible at times. And we did a 26.8 on our very first lap, which is not really a bad effort. But every time I'm doing a lap here now, what I'm kind of saying to myself is, okay, what did I do wrong in this corner on the previous lap? Did I go in a bit too deep, carry a bit too much minimum speed, or did it carry enough minimum speed? And then try and execute it. And you can see here, we very rarely restart the lap, even if we've made a mistake. As I've said it many times in my videos in the past, that I think it's really important to generate that muscle memory, which I think is very important. And although you could be playing this for 2-3 hours at a time, I always think an hour to 90 minutes is probably the max you want to do. Then take a break for a few hours, or maybe for the rest of the day, and then come back again tomorrow, and that muscle memory will kind of start to sink in a lot more as well. So hopefully you're learning a bit of something through this as well. And I'm also learning something as well. I'm learning to push to my limits a lot more, because I want to improve my qualifying pace as well as everything in my driving as well. But you can see lap after lap here, we're just making these really small adjustments per corner, just always trying to visualize what I did wrong on the previous lap. So using more of the track here. Used a little bit too much that time. As you can see, we lost a little bit according to our delta. I knew I could make up time in this last sector, and coming through here you can see how much time we've made up. So made up about 300 just in that corner. Really important to hit the curb on this inside, which we actually do quite nicely. Up into 5th gear, Beers really try and be as aggressive as you can on the power. And going across the line, it's a 26.5. But as you can see, as you go through here, if you just get the line right where your wheel as straight as possible, you can actually gain so much time. It's crazy that if you're just a bit smoother and keep your wheel as straight as you possibly can through the corners, how much time you can gain. And you can see on one of the next laps, we did another 26.5, up almost half a tenth going from Maggers and Beckett's. Knew I could make up a bit of time going up through into here, and you can see not running as wide on the exit this time. And sometimes just being that really half a metre closer to the apex, or sometimes it could even be centimetres, that it can make such a big difference. And, at an F1 Esports level, as we've seen in the qualifying, even being a 10th down can be quite catastrophic for your starting position. And we're just trying to really force that muscle memory right now, so just really getting into a nice rhythm. But you can see as we run wide how much time you lose. So just missing your turning in point by a fraction can have quite severe consequences, and kind of got to a stage where we were pretty much stuck on a 26.5. So then coming through into here, imagine to make up a bit of time, so trying to stay a bit tighter to this apex here, getting the throttle a bit earlier, and you can see that has really rewarded us. So just being a bit tighter, a bit more aggressive on the throttle, you can see how much that has benefited us. And at the time it didn't really feel that different, but just having that 1%, a little bit more urgency and a bit more pressure on the throttle, you can see how that has carried down, almost gained a 10th out of that line. So stay nice and tight here, using all the track on the exit. Lost a little bit on the exit, but you can see we're over a 10th up now, so this is actually quite a good lap. Only a couple tenths behind Fabrizio Genozo, and going through into here, doing that actually pretty well, losing a bit out on the exit. Now coming into it, do we hit this curb on the inside? Yes, we do. And you can see we're making up a lot of time, but just not that urgent on the throttle. And if you just hesitate just a fraction in terms of your aggressiveness on the throttle, you can see how much time that actually costs you. So managed to do a 26.3, which I was already actually fairly happy with, to be honest, because most people, esport drivers, have done a 25.9 or even a 26.0. Even in esports qualifying, 26.0 was quite the norm, as we do another 26.3. So yeah, pace is getting there, but it's really about kind of breaking through that plateau of, once you've achieved a certain lap time, your muscle memory kind of remembers how you did it. But if you haven't achieved that time before, it's really hard to do it off the bat. And that's why sometimes you just have to make those small hundreds of improvements each lap. And as your body adjusts and starts to learn to it, then it becomes more second nature to you. And once I've done the 26.0 once, it's going to be very easy to do that. Well, not easy, but easier to do it over and over again. But as you can see, coming through to here, we're quite a bit up, but we missed the curb, and look how much time we have lost because of that. Just because we missed it slightly, and it's a 26.3. once again, and going across the line, it's going to be a 26.4. So it's kind of getting stuck on this period here. See, again, we were just always within a few thousandths of what we were doing. So do we hit the curb this time? A bit better than last time, going on a throttle and trying to get a good exit, but we're just still very barely missing out on what we did. So coming through Mags and Beckett's now, 1,000th behind, so being very consistent. Middle of the track, stay over to the left, nice and early to right, try and use all this track as much as you dare on the exit, and you can see we got a very good exit. And I knew that there was quite a bit of time in this last chicane as well. So coming through into here, you can see again a really good exit, and we really need to hit the curb on this inside, and we missed it again ever so slightly. You can see how much time that has actually cost me. It's cost me about 0.04 of a second. And going across the line, it's a 3.47. So we are making small progress into the top 100 now, which is a pretty good achievement, I think, on PC, seeing how competitive it is. But kind of through into here, it's kind of got to a stage where I was getting a little bit burnt out. Been driving for about a good hour at this point, and this is kind of a good time to just take a little bit of a break. 92nd on the leaderboard, and decided to change cars, because a lot of people have debated that the cars do feel a little bit different. So I decided to go in the Mercedes, which I also do like driving on this game quite a bit, and we're just going to try and do the same thing again as much as possible. Coming through here, we get a pretty good exit coming off sector 1, and you can see we've been making solid steady progress, but it's been by a few hundredths every single time. Going into here, doing very, very nicely, trying to stay as tight as we can, getting the power nice and early, get into that 5th gear, and about 200ths up on this lap. And again, please let me know if you want me to do this for other F1 Esports laps that people do, see how close I can actually get, and let me know if you appreciate seeing all these laps, because I know it's a lot of laps to watch and take in, but like in my world record attempts, I think it's always good to try and show people the process and hopefully give them a bit more motivation and realise that it is sometimes quite a long process, and people do spend quite a long time trying to do these laps as well. But slow and steady does usually, well, sometimes wins the race. But you can see this time managed to get on the curb, and as a result of that, we just gained so much time on the apex, and going across the line, it's a 26.340. And you can see on this lap, we're about 3/4 of a tenth up, almost 9 to almost a full tenth up here. Coming into here, do we hit the curb on the inside? So yes, we do. Try not to run the curb on the outside, because it's a little bit hesitant on the throttle, and you can see just that being a bit cautious, that just really disrupts your lap time. So now we've done a 0.314, so improving by just a few hundredths every single time. A little bit of a snap on the exit, and now we've done a 0.311. So you can see again, we're getting so close. I was so desperate to get a 0.2. If I got a 0.2 within the first 90 minutes, considering qualifying is something I definitely need to improve on, then I would have been very, very happy with that. So we restarted the session, and having a little bit of a break. You can see, just go get the cockpit to get a bit of a drink or something, and then we're going to come back for really just spend another maybe 10-20 minutes and see how we do. And I always recommend people to restart the session as well, because some people have said you do get a little bit of tyre wear after a while. But here is now the fastest lap that I managed to do, so we're going to talk through it. So coming through here, 7.4 on the previous lap. So coming through here, take the line with least resistance. You can see how much time you actually gain by taking it a bit tighter. Gear 4 through here, so try to stay as close to the middle of the track as you can, but as early as you dare on the throttle. Get to 100% as soon as possible. So you want to get on the 50% throttle quite quickly, but as the wheel unwinds, that's when you deliver the rest of it 50-meter board as we pass that. Trying to stay nice and tight. Hit the apex as late as you can. Staying through 5th gear this time. Staying in 4th. Then short shifting into 5th gear. Then be as early as you dare on the throttle. And you can see we are about 200ths down on this lap already. Now going to cops. Turn earlier than you think. And then getting straight back on the throttle. Using all the track as possible. And you can see lost a little bit on the exit there as well. But going through Megas and Beckett's. Turn earlier than you think. Middle of the track. Get over to the left as early as you can. Earlier than you think into the right. Use all the track as possible on the exit. And you can see again, we've actually lost out during this part of the lap. So really, we've lost time we're pretty much everywhere. But coming through into here now, you can see how much time we made going into the entry. Into slash chicane, there's a lot of time to find. So hitting this curve really nicely. Getting my throttle nice and short shift into 5th gear, and you can see the exit we get such a good exit, and going across the line, it's going to be a 0.299. I was very happy with that after around an hour and a half, and yeah, to put it simply, it's very hard to get to an F1 Esports pole, and to certainly perform a lap like that in Q3, even if the Q3 might be faster, the pressure is much higher. So put me 77 on the leaderboards, but I really hope that has given you a bit of a genuine perspective on what the journey is like, giving you a bit of motivation and a bit of encouragement in case you are intimidated by these times as well. Just realize how much time and effort is put into this, and sometimes it's the smallest things that changes in your driving that have the biggest effect. So thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I will be catching you very soon. Peace.